The Extraordinary Phenomenon Investigations Council presents EPIC Voyages. Come join us as we enter and experience the great mysteries of the world with tonight's host,
Kevin Cook.
Good evening. This is Kevin Cook, your host for the Kevin Cook Show. Glad to be back with you again tonight. Now, we're running a couple minutes behind on some network technicalities, but I appreciate your forbearance on that. There's a lot of news going on. I mean, a lot of news. It isn't all paranormal. A lot of it's straight political and geopolitical. Of course, everybody knows that the elephant in the room that's brewing is the Israel-Iranian conflict or pending conflict. And you got to understand, folks, that the circumstances the Israelis are in is such that they're a tiny country. They can't afford to absorb a blow and come fight back. They have to strike first, and because the place is minuscule, and that's why all the circumstances surrounding the Iranian nuclear development and their constant litany of threats, that Israel is going to have to launch a bombing attack on Iran because we've done nothing. We're not capable of doing anything because the Iranians don't listen to us. They figure they're back, as was the experience this past week in the UN, where both China and Russia both blocked a UN resolution to do something about Syria. So the Iranians also feel they have this backing of those two countries. So this is kind of a proxy war between the U.S. and Russia and China in a round Robin Hood's barn way, and this is brewing. And I can only say I'm sorry I didn't buy oil stocks a year ago when I knew to do it. But this is pending, and it certainly is. It's very extreme. And I know I'm liberal Democrat type, but I'm not really a pacifist and at all. And I don't like to be bullied around by some dictatorships that are very brutal. So we'll just have to see how this all comes out in the wash. But one thing is certain, for whatever it's worth, on the world stage, China and Russia have really got a bad name. And this is true in the Arab world and any other organizations that's watching them. It's hard to really get behind Syrians mowing down their population and being their backers. So anyhow, we'll see how this all comes out. The one thing to the credit of the Russians is they finally drilled into Lake Vostok in the Antarctic. And this is if you're not familiar with this, they've been working on this for quite some time. This is a lake that's underneath the ice shelf in the Antarctic. It's been sealed off for 15 million years. It's 4 kilometers below the surface, and there's just no telling what kind of bacteria, life forms, or anything else they're going to find. So this is an interesting development. You must remember, when I criticize the Russians, I'm not talking about the Russian people. The Russian 100,000 of them got out there in sub-zero weather to protest against Putin last week. So these are some very gutsy people, and they're certainly used to conflict. I might also say if a Thomas Finley from London, who has written me, is listening, I want to shout out a thank you to him. One thing about this show, it has listeners in 120-odd countries, and I got a very fine thing, registered mail. I mean, I was thinking, now, who the heck is this? I mean, which trees did I plant that croaked or whatever? But as it turned out, it was a registered letter from the Royal Mail. And, being a salesman, I have to be careful if I'm not sued by, these potential tree customers. We have to replace these trees. But what I'm saying is I got an excellent letter from Thomas, and I really appreciate all the input I hear from listeners. I have Swedish ship captains that are salvage captains that are listening to the show, lots of people in South America, and even in the more exotic California. So, it's quite a good crew. And I want to shout out to Thomas, and I'll get you that information back on the Aurora crash of a UFO in Aurora, Texas. I'll get that information to you.
What?
Now there's been many strange sounds that have been heard in the earth lately. EarthFiles.com with Linda Moulton Howe has a lot of interesting stories. I urge everybody to look at her website, EarthFiles.com. And one of them, she had a little statement from KISS FM 96.9 in Amarillo that said they heard sounds which are the creepiest thing they've ever heard, end quote. And they also heard a, quote, chorus of trumpets, end quote, south of Memphis. So there's something extremely unusual going on in the sound department. Now, I know we got to get to our guests, Peter Guttilla and Terry Albright, in just a minute, but I want to just also make a mention that I'm filling in for tonight on EPIC Voyagers, and tomorrow night will be my regular show, the Kevin Cook Show. I should have said EPIC Voyagers at the top, but, habits are hard to break. It's good to fill in for Ken and the EPIC Voyagers crew. And tomorrow night on the Kevin Cook Show, Brooks Agnew will be our guest, and he'll discuss Admiral Byrd's Arctic expedition and hollow earth theories. February 14th, we're going to have Anthony Sanchez. We'll talk about the aliens, potentially at the Dulce, New Mexico base. And February 21st, we're going to have a little different show. It's going to be Mike Brown, who's an excellent fellow. He runs SpiritDaily.com. It's approximately 20-year-old Catholic newsletter that comes out every day, and it's got a lot of interesting stories with miracles, input on Catholicism. And don't be put off if you're not a Catholic. Remember, the Virgin Mary's apparitional statements are all very ecumenical, so don't be scared off that I'm trying to make you all Catholics, which you probably should be, but that's not the point. The point is you'll find this interesting. And I guess I better, before my guest gets sick of waiting, Terry, Peter, how you doing?
Oh, doing well. we're just having... I love listening to you. Yeah. Oh, no. I really love listening to you. You can tell you're the old school announcer.
Oh, man, I love it, too. I'd tune in and listen to you even if you weren't old school.
Well, that's very kind of you. I think I flunked on the Morgan Fairchild thing, but so what? She wants a Texan, and I'm...
Yeah, but she's so beautiful. What are you going to do? I loved her movies. I think I've seen...
I know.
Just about every film she's been
in. 20 years, and she did care for a while, but I guess my stock has fallen. But that's okay. That's really all right. In the scheme of things, it's probably all well and good. Because
people are dithering with all these things. We're dealing with things that go bump in the night. So our perspective is a little narrow, I think.
Well, perhaps I could still succeed in that regard. It's not totally over, but anyhow. She wants a Texan, and I'm, somewhat of a different geographical.
Well, she's very lovely. I mean,
she is.
And I'd love to talk with her sometime, and I know there are several others. Well, there are people out there. Yeah, good. There are people out there who have an interest, and we're working on several projects that we would like to promote.
Sure.
And get some help with. By the way, I wanted to mention this business about Syria. Quickly, then I'll shut up.
Take your time. I mean, it's quite a...
I'll tell you, my group, Violet Fire Research Group, we're all empaths, psychics, right? Years and years of doing psychic work, and we're all sensitive, and we're all intuitive. And when I heard about that massacre, I got to tell you, I dropped to my knees. I couldn't take it. Yeah. Working with light beings and all these things that we do, these great angels are very hurt by all this. Yeah. And there was a shudder. I mean, working with these subjects as we do, when there's great suffering, there's a kind of shudder. Yeah. And this shudder passes through the earth, and it goes right into the constellations. And it is there that life forms and beings of light feel it and hear it. They hear each individual cry of pain. when we were talking about these underground sounds, and I'm familiar with some of this because I've recorded these sounds for years. I have a collection, as a matter of fact, I'm compiling now of some of this that we may release or may not, depending on circumstances. But the earth actually cries out. And the sound of the pain, because, you know, the earth is a living entity. It's not just a ball of dirt. Yeah. And everything in creation, if I may use that term with equanimity, gives off a life force. And I'm telling you, as empaths and psychics, Terry knows what I'm talking about, Samara and the others in Violet Fire, we do most of our research by psychic means. And the pain that was generated by all this and is being generated now is awful. And, you know, there's going to be an intervention at some point. I've talked about it frequently over the years. I call it the advent of light. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a kind of rebellion among the angels. I know I'm getting far out here, but I'll tell you, I worked for 9 years with Dorothy Izatt, and she is the Lady of Light that I wrote my book about, Contact with Beings of Light. And she called me one evening, and I remember there was a certain pallor kind of hanging over everything, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't shake it. I'm not given to depression. And when I find myself getting depressed out of nowhere, it's because something is going on somewhere that is awful. And she said to me, and I never forgot this, because when I talked with Dorothy, I had a kind of telepathic connection with her. So it wasn't just her choice of words, but I could actually envision everything she was saying very clearly. And she said, Peter, the great angels are lined shoulder to shoulder. And she said they have swords, 2 swords, one in each hand, and they're lined up looking at a golden door. And she said, Peter, they're waiting for that door to open, because when that door opens, they will join the earth, help the earth, move the earth upward. And as she was telling me this story, I could see these giants. I mean, you know, angels are so huge. We usually have a visual depiction of them in our imaginations, and we see them as benign people with wings and all that sort of thing. But actually, they're enormous. I mean, they're much like our universe. You know, the planets being so far apart and the stars and galaxies being so far apart. Well, these angels are denizens of the universes, and they are enormous, but they can fit through the eye of the proverbial needle. And so they can shapeshift in a way so that they can be more acceptable to us if we encounter them. Well, these angels are so big. I mean, one toe, if I can use this analogy, one toe would cover the United States, that kind of thing, right? And they're going to help, and this help is coming through. But Dorothy was telling me a story, and I could feel it. I was there. I saw this enormous hallway. I mean, it was silverish and goldish in color, and it extended into the infinities. And at one end was this golden door, and the golden door, I believe, whether I'm right or wrong is anybody's guess, but my guess about that was that this was the throne of God. Whatever we conceive God to be, it was the center of all power and all life in our multiple universes. And so she said, when that door opens, they will have the command. And all of this filth, this gore, this deadliness, this ugliness that humans exhibit toward themselves over and over again, regardless of the messages. And we've all heard the messages. And we're still murdering each other.
I know.
And brutalizing each other. So she said to me, that's going to happen. Well, I'm telling you, when I've been watching, you know, I follow the news, and, you know, Kevin, this planet is in a bad way.
Oh.
And I know at some point we're going to get help with all of this. And so I encourage people to keep a positive outlook regardless of the muck, and try to realize that there are powers far in advance of anything we understand. And they're with us, and they're working with us. We're going to be, Violet Fire Group is going to be having regular meetings where I know these light beings, which are the angels, are going to appear for us so that we can directly have the exchange of energy that is so important. And I always encourage people, just look up. They're there. Honestly, they're there. And they will help us. But we have to help ourselves, too. I'm sorry.
Peter. I mean to interrupt, but Peter, how would somebody want to get up with you and Terry? Do you have a website, or what would be the contact?
Well, we're going to have one very soon. We're on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I mean, Violet Fire Research Group is on Facebook. And if they want to write to me, they can write to me directly at peterguttilla@aol.com. We're going to have, I'm inviting the public. I've already made this promise so many times. I've had multiple experiences with the light beings. And I've been fortunate enough to get some of this on film and so forth. And I want people to know they're there. This is my big deal now, okay? And this isn't about me. I have people out there who think that I'm some kind of a do-gooder or whatever, you know. Right. But this isn't about me. This is about a reality. And if anybody asks me to prove it, my dear friend and colleague, Dorothy Izatt, has some 35,000 feet of film, documentation, of these light beings. She, a single individual, has more documentation to support this contention than anyone else on the planet, at least of record. Yeah. I can prove it. If anyone wants to challenge me, have at it, because I can prove what I'm saying here. And my friends and people who know me have experienced the light beings with me, and they know too. Now, these beings are not empty energy forms. All right, they're very high level, beyond comprehension in many ways, and they are of the divine. I don't care what people feel about religion or anything else. It has nothing to do with religion, you know. Right. I mean, even though I was raised a Catholic, and so was Dorothy Izatt. I still can't live that down. You know? No, I'm just kidding. But Dorothy is
from the cards and letters.
Yeah, it's a wonderful example. You know, Dorothy talked to authorities of the Catholic Church. She and I went around with this when we were working together, and she is the most kind person, loving and compassionate that you'll ever want to meet. There's not a shred of negativity anywhere in this little 5 foot tall, nigh to 90-year-old lady, great grandmother. Oh. And she used to talk to me, Kevin. She'd say, Peter, she says, I don't know what else to do. She says, I have all my films, and people are still questioning me and, you know, saying negative things and the whole thing. And that just made me so mad. I started to snort steam, you know, because I'd worked with this little woman, and in my opinion, she's a latter-day avatar, if a reluctant avatar, right?
So what were they trying to allude, that she was communing with negative forces or something?
Oh, I mean, the super religious, you know. I mean, how do you know this isn't Satan? How do you know the devil is at work? And on and on and on. Right. In spite of the examples. And she even experimented with that one time. She said, listen, what are you trying to tell me? And of course, it could be the devil. So the minute she started inviting these people into her home, and they were just extolling the virtues of evangelical this and evangelical that, and they weren't all Christian, mind you. But these were people of other backgrounds, in other words. And she would invite them to her home. And when she did that, she noticed dark forms that would rush through the room and hide in the corners. And she started to weep uncontrollably for no apparent reason. So finally she put it to the light being. She said, what is going on? And they said in simple terms, where there is light, there can be no darkness. So when the light was removed from the moment, the communication, the relatedness to other people, and so on, the darkness moved in. Yeah. And it was the darkness that was jading people's judgment about the nobility and the high level of these beings that made themselves so known to her. And she asked them. This wasn't just some researcher sticking a lens at something. She asked a question. She said, may I photograph you? Nobody's going to believe me. And they said, yes, of course. And she did. And it's on film, emulsion film, mind you, not digital doohickey.
And in 1974, till the present.
Well, she started in 1974. And people say, well, I can fake that. I can get a studio, and I can do this, and I can do that. Yeah, I said, well, could you have done that in 1974? Using only kitchen implements? Because this poor little thing, she had no access to technology. There was no special equipment, no guys out there with, pointy heads doing fancy things with computers. This was just, it was real. Take my word for it. It is real. I have evidence of my own of it. And
I have a friend that's, you might have heard him on one of the shows, Father Mike Sherbet, and he's a Orthodox Catholic priest, and he's also an exorcist. But he absolutely is certain that there are many, many myriad spiritual forms out there, and they're not all demonic. He said, actually, from his experience, being an exorcist, and one of the few practicing exorcists in the country, that there's very, very few actual demonic examples out there.
Oh, yes. Smart guy. I like that guy. Absolutely. I mean, you listen to some of these groups and organizations and what have you, and we're being overrun by demons, and it drives me insane.
Oh, yeah,
no, I did exorcisms myself for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And my cousin is a priest, right? I've got 2 female cousins that are nuns. I could go on with this. I'm even related to the Pope.
You're like the popes, yeah. I know. Well, no, but I'm saying sure.
No, I am. I really am. Now, I'm a universalist today. Yeah. I hold that there's truth in all belief systems. But I always tell people, listen, this isn't about religion. It is about one thing. It tells us that the root of all religions have a truth to them.
Well, this is Father Sherbet, who's actually kind of my crony. He is also has, if you will, along the same lines, an evangelical outlook towards other religions and giving them respect for what they say and not saying they're all hooey necessarily. And he's a very enlightened kind of fellow, and I don't think he's enlightened in the sense of being an airhead. I think he's enlightened in that he realizes that we don't have every I's not dotted and every T's not crossed in our understanding.
Right.
And but yes, very much. He all I'm saying is he embodies the same outlook.
Well, you know what, Kevin? I'll tell you, Dorothy-Izatt, and I can't say enough about her, and we're going to lose someone very important to this world when she passes away.
Oh, please.
Yeah, we've been losing a lot of our friends lately, so Terry doesn't want me to talk about that.
No, I didn't mean that.
Okay.
I just hope that we can, do some really good things for and with Dorothy before she passes away.
Oh, well, she's with us anyway. I mean, that's beside the point.
That also reminds me, Peter worked for 9 years with Dorothy-Izatt and had all of the rights to the story, to the book, and began to start working with it to promote it and release it, and Dorothy's family stepped in and caused a real ruckus.
Oh, really?
So that's why we haven't gone a lot further with this story than we have. I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, no, the thing is,
been browbeaten over this.
Dorothy warned me about this. She said it in the beginning, that when she started letting others know about her photography and her experiences, they just were all over her with negativity. And she warned me. She said, Peter, if you take up the mantle, you'll probably get a lot of negative criticism and other things. And boy, was she right. I haven't been able to open my mouth without somebody coming after me. And what's worse about it is that many of these so-called, buffs and enthusiasts out there declare that all these other levels of the paranormal are equally as important. Well, you know what? No, they're not. And I'll tell you why. Because we're dealing with the panoply of great angels. We're dealing with what is at the root of all sensitive Christianity and all the other religions. I mean, there's no question. What the basic message is, God is real, okay? Right. There is a power, a center of all things at the eye of the universe. Yeah. It's real, and what we as human beings ought to be doing is striving to rise above the swamp we're living in. That's what life is about. That was what religions were all about, what all the prophets and avatars and great ministers of time immemorial. I mean, they were all saying the basic same thing. It doesn't matter, really, what the format is. What matters is that you acknowledge what life is about in this world. It's not about news,